And that's the end of the first half. As the teams head to the locker room, the Spartans lead the Bulldogs by a score.
You guys stink. Geez, Coach, we're only down a couple of points. No, I mean you guys really smell. You need to hit the showers. And here, I got every one of you new bars of soap from the Sterling Soap Company. Each bar is artisan crafted using natural ingredients and essential oils. They also have shave soaps, colognes, beard balm, and a whole lot more. Now get in there. But Coach, we have another half to play. I don't care. I can't stand to be around you.
A few minutes later.
All right, bring it in tight. You guys are still playing terrible, but you're smelling great out there. Now listen, you're going to need to stock up for the rest of the season. We got a lot of tough games left. So go to sterlingsoap.com after the game. That's STIRLING soap.com. You got that? Yes, Coach? Great. Sterlingsoap.com on 3. 1, 2, 3. Sterlingsoap.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Today we'll have part 2 of my discussion with author Jack Bethel. We'll be discussing his latest book, Decades Across Redondo, and we'll also be discussing some Los Angeles sports history.
The one I remember curiously was the Knicks, the one that where Willis Reed came out and
Yes,
I think he was injured and they hadn't really thought he was going to play, and then he comes out and it was like Game 7, and he comes out and plays and he rallies the Knicks to a victory and they win the series. That was heartbreaking.
yes.
So I think it was Game 7.
It was Game 7. I remember that vividly because that's right around the time I was about 8 years old. So that's about, the age where I really started to become a sports fanatic, and Willis Reed was my favorite player, and so I remember that series vividly. And yeah, I guess after, they finally don't have to play the Celtics. So I'm sure a lot of people in LA thought, okay, this is finally going to be our year. We don't have to play the Celtics. And then they lose to the Knicks. But
the flip side of that argument is, while this is going on, UCLA is on a run that's unparalleled in NCAA history. They win 7 straight titles. John Wooden's, Bruins. I was a distant UCLA fan, but I thought that was remarkable. And if you were a basketball fan in Los Angeles in those days, you probably had to look to the college game to find a little bit more success.
Yep, that was the John Wooden era, right? I guess he had Lou Alcindor, and then after that he had Bill Walton, right?
Yeah, and just a whole host of superstars that went through there. But
yeah, that was an amazing run, those John Wooden years. Well, 1972. Oh no, 1970. Well, basketball season goes into 2 different years. So 1971-1972 season, they finally win the NBA championship. A rematch with the Knicks, and they beat the Knicks to finally get an NBA championship. Do you have any memories of that 1971-72 team?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I was living overseas at the time. So at that point, it was mostly newspapers and radio, they, 1972 in Santo Domingo, you don't have a lot of cable. You have like just over the air television. So didn't get a lot of exposure to that, just mostly what I'd read.
Right. And as you mentioned, they didn't move to Los Angeles till 1960. They were the Minneapolis Lakers. And they won, I believe they won 4 NBA titles as the Minneapolis Lakers. And then, then the following year, 1972-73 season, they play the Knicks again. And so three times in a 4-year span, they played the Knicks, and this time they lost to the Knicks. So, yeah, all those years of losing to the Celtics, and now it's the Knicks that they can't beat, although they did beat them the one year. But then I think 1979 is when things really started to take a positive turn for the Lakers. They won another NBA title in 1979, beating the Philadelphia 76ers. And then they kind of went...
I think that was 1980, wasn't it? 1980, wasn't it, that they beat the...
Yeah, 1970.
I think 79 was the year that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird graduated from college.
Right.
And I forget when Jerry Buss buys the Lakers at 78 or 79, and his ownership, along with the arrival of Magic in Los Angeles, transformed the NBA and the Lakers, or the Lakers and the NBA, depending on which way you look at it.
That's right.
But so the Lakers will dominate the 80s. The Celtics will win 3 championships, one at the expense of the Lakers. I remember that 84 series. Man, they just could not. You're like thinking to yourself, on paper, the Lakers are the better team.
Right.
But they lost to the Celtics. And I remember supposedly, I'm not sure if I'm correct in this, but the old Boston Garden was not air conditioned.
Whoa.
And so there was a game in that series that it was like over 80, 90 degrees, and the Lakers were melting.
Yeah.
But they ended up beating the Celtics 2 out of 3. So
That's right. That's right. As you mentioned, that was the year 1970. Well, I always get confused because basketball goes into 2 years. The season starts in 1979, so I think
you're right.
I think Magic Johnson was a part of that team. I believe he was on that team. The 1979-1980 Lakers, they beat the 76ers. Then in 1981, 1982. Yeah, they went on quite a run with Magic Johnson. I think in 82, 80, I'm losing track now. 1981, 1982. I think they won another title there. Then they lost.
Yes, I think they beat the 70. Yeah, they beat the 76ers, and then the next year, 83, was the year I think who did the 76ers get in a trade that I can't remember.
Was that Moses Malone?
I think they beat the Lakers. Yes,
Moses.
Thank you.
Right.
So I think they beat the Lakers and they beat them up pretty good in the 83 final.
That's right. The 82-83 season, they lost to the 76ers. Then the following year, as you mentioned, they lost to the Celtics. And then they played the Celtics again 2 more times, won both of those.
85 and 87.
That's right. 88, they beat the Detroit Pistons, right?
Correct.
And then the following year, lost to the Pistons. Wow. Well, then they fell off a little bit until 1990, 1991. I forget who they played, but they lost that one.
I think to the Bulls.
That was to the Bulls? Okay.
Yep.
then it looks like they won three in a row in the early 2000s.
2001. Yeah.
They won 3 in a row. And they won 2009, 2010, 2019. Wow, quite a winning history with the LA Lakers, that's for sure. So again, like we spoke about, well, they had success in Minneapolis too. So really, ever since their inception into the NBA, it's just been an incredibly successful franchise. I can't even, I couldn't even count. I lost room on my paper how many times they went to the NBA Finals, and they won quite a few of them too. So quite a rich history and so many great players. I'm sure you could, you have a better memory of me than it for all the players that they had, starting with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain and on and on. Which years would you say you really remember the most from the LA Lakers dynasty?
I would say, yeah, thanks for asking that. I would say 85, the year they beat the Celtics.
Right.
That was finally the year that, you get that, pardon me, you get that little leprechaun off your shoulder. And,
That's right.
finally, because they would meet the Celtics, again in 87. So sort of a rubber match, and they won that, which was very satisfying. And then I believe when they played the 2009 NBA championship, it was again against the Celtics, who I'm pretty sure were the defending champions that year. They had won the title in 2008.
Okay.
And in 2009, I think it was a game 7, and they were leading late in the game. And Kobe Bryant just engineered this remarkable turnaround, put the Lakers on his back, and they ended up winning the series against the Celtics. So I think if you measure yourself against the teams that you play, the Celtics, I know of late it's been more, the Golden State Warriors, to a lesser extent Miami or Oklahoma City or some of the others, but
Right.
the Celtic-Laker rivalry is right there with the Dodger-Yankee rivalry.
Yes.
And probably one of the great rivalries in all of sport has nothing to do with Los Angeles. It's the Packers and the Bears.
Right.
That's, two teams that have won more NFL titles than any other two franchises in the league. And, now granted, during the Super Bowl era, the Bears have been largely absent other than that remarkable 85 team that they had. But that's a rivalry that I think transcends, again, most sports.
Right. Well, two of the original teams going way back to the 1920s. So a lot in your book, you talk a lot about the Los Angeles Rams, and of course they too did not start in Los Angeles. 1936 to 1945, they were the Cleveland Rams. And they did win an NFL championship. Actually, it was their last year as the Cleveland Rams. They beat the Washington Redskins for the NFL championship, and the following year they moved to Los Angeles. And they had some success. 1949, 1950. They went to the NFL championship game, but lost both times. 1951, they won their second NFL title, beating the Cleveland Browns. 1955, they lost. But in your book, it really starts with the year 1967, right? And this was...
Yeah, so I laid there. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say 1967 possibly some people feel was the best team ever. They only lost one game the entire season. And, they had high hopes of going to the Super Bowl. And they got demolished in the playoffs by the Packers.
Yeah, so the story of the Los Angeles Rams after they come west is that one initial success, 51, and then they disappear for, 15 years of mediocrity and
Yep.
just, couldn't get out of the cellar. They were putting together really bad seasons, and finally, they hired George Allen, and Allen leaves I believe the Chicago Bears after a sort of dispute with George Halas.
Yep.
George Halas said, "I'm not letting you go." And George Allen was like, "Well, you can't hold me here." And they went to court, and I think Halas won, and then said to Allen, "Okay, you can go." So Allen comes to Los Angeles, he transformed the Rams into this defensive, team that just was really good. And I think was that the year Roman Gabriel, I think, wins the most valuable player award? But
1969,
he was
I
Rusty
believe.
Meyer.
69, he won the MVP. Yep.
But the Rams in '67 have that extraordinary year, and they that was back before the NFL assigned home field to the team that had the better record,
Right.
or was more higher seeded. And today, obviously, the seeding changes from week to week based upon who's still alive. But in 1967, the Rams, with the best record in football, have to travel to play Green Bay, and I don't think the Rams, other than yesterday, have had a successful track record in cold weather games. They're not as, they don't do as well. And like you said, the Packers, defeated them.
Yes.
Pretty handily.
Yep. And then 2 years later, they play the Vikings in the playoffs and
same thing. Yeah.
Came close to winning that game. It was a very close game. They only lost by a field goal. 1973, they have a few off seasons there. They let George Allen go, right? And after that, they had some bad seasons. But they make it back in 1973 with Chuck Knox as their coach. And again, a very good regular season, 12 wins, 2 losses, and more hopes of going to the Super Bowl. And they lose to the Cowboys in the playoffs, 27-16. The following year, again, they play the Vikings. And they lose again, 14-10. 1975. I think 1975 might be a comparable team to their 1967 team going into the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys. They have 13 wins and 2 losses. Just demolished the Cardinals in the playoffs. And they fell flat on their faces. They got demolished in that game, 37-7. So, the frustration, I can't imagine the frustration of being a Rams fan.
Yeah. Again, being a Charger fan, kind of watched a little bit from afar on that, but you're right.
Well, the guys in your book, the characters in your book, they that was like, I'm sure that was the same thing with the fans in Los Angeles, for the Rams, year after year, they have such great teams in the regular season. 1976, again, another great regular season. They beat Dallas in the playoffs. They go to the NFC Championship game, and now they lose to Minnesota again. The following year, they lose to Minnesota again. Well, then that game was at home, right? 1977, they finally got to play the Vikings in L.A., and they had a monsoon. The game was
I was going to say
the Mud Bowl.
the storm came up, and it's sort of like this weather came from Minnesota down and descended on LA, and it was cold and rainy, and the Vikings were right at home.
Unbelievable. I remember that well because they finally got to play the Vikings in L.A., and of all the times for a big storm to come through, and they lost again. They lost 14-7. So now that's 4 times they played the Vikings and lost every one. In 1978, they make it to the NFC Championship again. And that year they finally beat the Vikings. That's the year they finally beat the Vikings. 1978, they beat the...
Then they run into Dallas.
Then they played Dallas in the NFC Championship. They lose 28-0. Now they finally... 1979, oddly enough, they don't have a very good regular season. They barely make it to the playoffs only because they have a very weak division. They finish with a 9-7 record, and nobody thinks they're going to beat Dallas, and they beat Dallas. And then they beat Tampa Bay, and then they finally got in the Super Bowl. Do you have any memories of that season?
Yeah, I remember them beating Tampa Bay, and I was watching it thinking to myself, this is kind of painful to watch. It's just nobody can move the ball, and finally, as the clock's ticking down, you're looking at the scoreboard. I'm not in the game, obviously. At the game, it was down in Tampa Bay, but watching it on TV, and you're thinking, Rams might actually win this game because Tampa Bay can't seem to do anything either. Their offense was just dormant, and they finally win. And they're going to go. The other thing, just backing up for a second, what's interesting about that Dallas game,
right?
Nobody knew it at the time, but that becomes the last game that Roger Staubach ever played.
That's right.
He retires and it wasn't immediately evident. He took this, a couple months to think about it.
Yeah.
But I believe, if I recall what I'd found when I was reading this, going, because he didn't make a big splash about it, but a couple months after, like maybe even after the Super Bowl, he announces he's retiring. I believe, I'll get this right, his wife is a registered nurse, and just he had taken enough, hits that he was thinking, I'm on top of my game, had a remarkable career. This is a guy who wins the Heisman Trophy, serves his country in Vietnam, and comes back and joins the league late, and he wins the MVP, a couple Super Bowls, obviously a sterling career. He probably could have played a few more years, but he walked away on top, and nobody knew it at the time, so that was interesting. But coming back to your question, Tampa Bay, they defeat Tampa Bay, and they're going to the Super Bowl, and they're going to play Pittsburgh. They're going to play in Pasadena, so it's the closest thing the Super Bowl's had to a home field game. Yeah. And you're thinking, well, the Steelers are going to win this game still. And I think what is kind of, a little bit bittersweet is the Rams could have won that game. They had a couple of chances and just a couple of out of nowhere great plays by Pittsburgh and a couple of really bad mistakes by, that interception late in the game by Ferragamo.
Right.
Because they're going to go down and score it. They had the momentum going. They were moving the ball. Pittsburgh's defense, I suspect, was getting a little gassed at that point.
Yep.
But
Yeah, they were winning that game. I think going into the third quarter, they were ahead, 19-17, I think. And like you said, some mistakes and costly mistakes, and they wound up losing the game 31-19.
Yeah.
And then all through the 1980s, they still have good teams. 1980, uh, they this was this I remember well, being a Cowboys fan. 1980, the Rams beat the Cowboys on Monday Night Football handily. I think it was something like 38-13. Beat them bad.
Mm.
And then 2 weeks later, the two teams met again in the playoffs, and Dallas beat them handily.
What I remember, what I remember about the '80s was just, the old order was, rapidly on its way out, and life was changing.
Yes.
And if I wrote a sequel to this book, the entire '80s is the rise of the West Coast offense.
Right.
And how Bill Walsh just transforms the NFL, and just how everything kind of changed from entertainment to the movies to TV. But, the NFL captured that, and just the rise of the 49ers, and how, things changed so dramatically. And the Rams disappear for quite a bit of time. It's sort of like that Dodger Angel conversation earlier. They just couldn't get out of the shadow of the 49ers.
That's right. Yep, they had some good teams, but not quite as good as, the 1970s. 1983, they actually made it to, I think they made it to the NFC Championship game, but they got destroyed 51-7 by the Redskins. 84, they lost to the Giants. 85, they lost to the Bears. 88, they lost to Minnesota. 89, they make it to the NFC Championship game again, but as you say, the 49ers were now a powerhouse. Beat the Rams 30-3. After that, the 90s were just a disaster. Well, they moved. 1995, they moved to St. Louis. And all those years in L.A., right? They could never win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
They moved to St. Louis, and a few years later, they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I understand professional sports is now a business, even more than when I was younger. But I still, to this day, I'm going to kind of go sideways for a second here. There are certain franchises that belong in certain cities.
Right.
And I don't know how you decide which ones those are, but to this day, I still see that Colts helmet, and I think of Baltimore,
Right,
and Johnny Unitas, and those great Baltimore franchises. And I struggle with that one. And when the Rams went to St. Louis, it was sort of like, this is a team that really forged its identity on the West Coast.
right.
It's a California team. It's on the beach. It's got surfboards. It's got palm trees. This is a team that belongs in Los Angeles. And, to their credit, St. Louis loved the Rams. They supported them, gave them great, turnout and things like that. But, and they're going to capture their first Super Bowl in St. Louis.
Right.
And, when the Browns left Cleveland to go to Baltimore, it was kind of ironic, but I think the NFL recognized that it was kind of dealing with something. And I think in retrospect, they did the right thing by saying, okay, you can go to Baltimore, but the Browns name stays in Cleveland, because we're going to put another franchise there. And that Brown, name logo identity is intertwined with the city of Cleveland. So I'm sure you could think of franchises that just if they left and moved to another place, you'd be thinking this is a crime.
Yeah.
But when the Rams finally came back to Los Angeles, I thought, okay. Again, I'm not a big Rams fan, but that was a restoration of something I thought that needed to be righted.
Right. It just it never felt right. It just didn't seem right that the Rams were not playing in LA. And 2016, they finally moved back to LA. So.
And they've been an extraordinary franchise. They are where they belong.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And then they finally, they lost. They got to the Super Bowl in 2018, lost to the Patriots. Then in 2021, so that's only 4 or 5 years ago, they finally win the Super Bowl as the Los Angeles Rams. They beat the Bengals. So that's their first Super Bowl as the their first Vince Lombardi trophy as the Los Angeles Rams was 2021. And
yeah, only took 56 years.
Wow.
But they got that. They got that trophy.
They finally got it, and now they have another chance, right?
I believe so. Yeah, but if I
see.
was a betting man, I think Seattle's got a very good defense. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, because as we know, upsets happen all the time. But wow, quite a rich tradition of, and that's not, that's just, we mainly just talked about Los Angeles sports. That's not even mentioning all the other California teams. So,
did you like other elements of the story, like the cameo, the celebrity cameo?
oh yeah, especially that one. Especially the one with they met Deacon Jones at the beach, right?
Yes.
And the surf. You could tell the story about the surfboard.
Yeah, so the backdrop is, my primary character's name is Luce, and he's at the beach, and he's a big surfer, and all of a sudden there's Deacon Jones, and he's got I think the predominant board, one of the predominant boards of that era was a Dewey Weber, and Deacon Jones is on a Dewey Weber, and he just can't stay on the board. He keeps falling off. So eventually he gets frustrated, and he takes the board and he heaves it down beach. It's an empty beach. And I'm not sure you could do this, but I made it sail like 50, 70 yards in the air, and it comes down, lands face first. And he goes, "That's not a Dewey Weber. That was a Johnny Unitas." But anyway, that was a good scene. But, Deacon Jones was a good guy about it. He gave my character a couple of tickets to the first game of the season.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yep. And there was quite a few, what I liked a lot about the book is that it didn't just focus solely on sports. You had a lot of historical facts in there, as you mentioned, during that time period, late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot of turmoil going on in the country, a lot of, we had the assassinations of Martin Luther King and RFK, and then the Watergate, and so much turmoil, and you brought all that to light in the book too, mentioning a lot of that.
Yeah, and so Luce, he's like Dom owns the bar, and Luce is his best friend, and he works, at 20th Century Fox, and so I tried to blend a lot of entertainment in there, and I think it's interesting little piece of trivia. 1968, 1969, only 2 years in American history where a G-rated movie wins the Academy Award in 68, and a year later, an X-rated movie wins the Academy Award.
Wow.
Can you name either of the movies?
1968, let's see, G-rated movie. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember the name of it. Oliver, yep. And then
it's like the last musical to win the Academy Award for, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades or something. And then a year later, a movie that if you saw it today, you're like, that was X-rated, and it was X-rated initially, and then I think the MPAA came out, the Motion Pictures Alliance of America came out and changed it. Not long, but initially came out it was X-rated. It was Midnight Cowboy.
Okay. I didn't.
So 69 wins the Academy Award for Best Picture, and as you were talking about cross-cultural, counterpoints. The guy who wins the Academy Award for Best Actor is John Wayne, who was about as anti-X-rated or Midnight Cowboy as you're going to find, and he wins his Academy Award for Best Actor for True Grit.
Wow, that's interesting. What a difference a year makes, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us, if you could, tell us a little bit about your other books.
So the other 3 books, 2 are sort of a series. A Miracle in Page is about, it's a spiritual book, and it's loosely based on the book of Acts in the Bible. So the book of Acts is one of my favorite books in the Bible. And at that point, Jesus has ascended to heaven, and the apostles now are dealing with his loss. They're, probably profoundly sad, but one of the, besides the ministry and the evangelism that they would do, they were performing miracles.
Right.
And they were saving people's lives, bringing people back from the dead. And I thought, what if you had a modern outbreak of miracles somewhere in America?
Yeah.
And I chose Page, Arizona, so hence the name of the book, A Miracle in Page. Page is the northernmost city in Arizona, and it's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I've got, 2 protagonists, a Catholic priest and a Protestant televangelist. And there's a very large body of water there called Lake Powell, which figures prominently in the story. I don't want to give too much away, but there's an outbreak of miracles that start getting bigger and bigger and bigger until the entire world descends on Page. And
wow.
Like the Today Show's broadcasting live out of Page, and CNN there, the Washington Post, the New York Times. Everybody comes to Page. So it's a great book. Great 2 books, and when you read it, just realize human beings are being human beings. So it's not a castigation of anything other than just, it's all about the power of prayer.
Right.
In action.
Excellent.
2 fun books, no vulgarity, no gratuitous sex. The other book is just the opposite. It's just straight Cold War espionage, and the KGB has come up with a plot in the 60s to insert sleeper agents into the government of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And their sole programming is one piece of thing. If they're ever activated, they're to kill their immediate supervisor. And you're like, why in the world would they do that? Well, in the 1960s, there was this ongoing dialogue about who would shoot first. It was called First Strike. Who would launch their missiles first, us or the Soviet Union? And the Soviets are thinking, if we launch first and we activate all these sleeper agents, it's going to significantly disrupt the American chain of command.
Right.
Now, ultimately, they had to discard the plan because they just couldn't bring it to scale. They couldn't brainwash a whole ton of different people.
Yeah.
But it did take in one person, and he's about to become vice president of the United States. Who's his immediate supervisor?
Wow.
And the plot falls into the hands of a Russian oligarch who wants to use the levers of power to his advantage. So it's a race to Inauguration Day. And my two primary protagonists are a African-American FBI agent, and she's a real pistol, and her counterpoint is a Swedish hit woman who works for the Russian oligarch. And those two, I already know for a fact, are going to feature in a sequel. They both come out of this book, Deep Plant. And I'm trying to talk to a few people about making that into a movie.
That's funny. I was just going to say, it sounds like it could be made into a movie. Yeah.
So
I hope you have good success with that. It does sound like it would make for a great movie.
Yeah, I hope you get to read some of the others, but yeah, thank you.
Yes.
For asking.
And can you, hold up your current book and tell us where any listeners that are interested in purchasing it, where they can get it.
All right. Well, thank you. So here's the cover. Can you see that? Okay.
Yep.
Can you get that in there?
Lift it up just a little bit.
So it's called.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's set Redondo Beach, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, and you can see the pier in the background, and that's where the surfing and the beach figures prominently into the story.
Right.
Let me see if I can put that. There you go.
Yep, that's it.
And you can see the little football right there in the center, because football's at the center of this story. Right. It's all about the friendship of these men and their love of the Rams. So you can find the book either at jackbethel.com or Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
All right. Well, it was great speaking with you. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you have a lot of success with the books, and maybe they'll make that book into a movie. I hope so. It was great.
Well, cool. Mark, thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a privilege to talk to you and share some of these stories and and thank you for the work that you and the Sports History Network are doing to preserve all of that, because there's so much rich history in that 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s period.
Oh, there sure is. Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Okay, that will conclude today's podcast with author Jack Bethel. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.